Thank you. So welcome everybody. We've been letting people in. We had our AGM this morning, but we've been letting people in since 9:30. So welcome everybody. There's a lot of you here today, so I don't think we'll be able to go round and introduce everybody. Otherwise, we might be here till about 11 o'clock doing that. So what I shall do is I'll go through the meeting agenda. I'll go through everything with you and introduce people, and as people come to speak, if you can say your name and where you're from, that would be enormously helpful. So thank you. So welcome everybody. Just a few little housekeeping issues to go through. As I've mentioned before, but some of you may have just come in recently, please can you keep your mic off, mic on mute? That's so that we don't get background noise. If that's possible, that would be really helpful. If you've got anything to say, you'd like to join in, please put your hand up. If you can't put your hand up and you're not sure where to do that, because it depends on the system you're using as to where the hand is. On mine, it's on the top bar and it's under reactions, but sometimes it's on the bottom bar. Just depends on what you're using. If you can't do that, you can always put something in the chat box. Again, that varies according to what you're using, but sometimes it's on the top and it's a little bubble and it says chat. If you press on that, you can put notes in the chat box. We would like to let as many people speak as possible, so if you do have a question, could you please make the question quite brief and concise? So thank you very much. We'll go on to the next slide. Thank you, Megan. So this is our agenda. I'm just going to make that a fraction bigger for myself. Oops, I've got to go back. Lovely. Right. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction. I've got a few slides. Actually, to be perfectly honest, I wonder if we can keep that towards the end because we've got speakers and I don't want to delay the speakers. So I'll keep a presentation to the end about some of the things that we're doing. But I'd like to go straight into Emma White from Skills for Care. And I did see Emma had joined us. Emma, are you there?
Morning, Christine. I am here. Yes.
Lovely, Emma. Lovely
to see you.
Oh, there you are. Lovely to see you too, Emma. I think you mentioned you had a presentation and you've got hold of your presentation.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you want to bring that up and I'll leave it to you, Emma. Thank you.
Lovely.
Emma.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just briefly introduce myself because I'm standing in for Karen Andrew. I'm sure you all know who's standing in for Fran Simons, who's on maternity. So you're getting this information third hand, but I'm very happy to be here and I've worked with Christine over the years. So yeah, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Emma White and I'm a locality manager for Skills for Care, like Karen. And I've got our update, our Skills for Care update. So I'm just going to share the slide. So I won't be able to see you while I'm doing this. If you've got any questions, perhaps Christine, if you could keep an eye out, please, that would be great. So
yes, I will.
I'll just bring this up, hopefully.
Yes, that's up, Emma.
Yes. I'm just going to make it bigger. Okay.
That's it.
Perfect. Okay, so we are obviously we've got lots of work going on at the moment. We are well, we have actually put in our business planning obviously for 22-23, so we have got lots of new work planned, but we still obviously have quite a lot of work still going on at the moment from 21-22. So I shall just go through some of what we're doing at the moment. I think really importantly, and I've brought this to the front of the presentation actually, is an update that we've just had through with regard to the Liberty Protection Safeguard, so the LPS. I'm sure many of you'll know what this is, but it was introduced in 2019 to replace DOLS. It's gone a little bit quiet around this, obviously during COVID, but now things seem to be moving on again. And as you can see there, there's some main aims of what LPS is set out to do, which is to deliver improved outcomes for people who are or in need to be deprived of their liberty, put the rights and wishes of those people at the centre of all the decision making on deprivation of liberty, and to protect people aged 16 and above who are or may be deprived of their liberty, to enable their care and treatment. And it applies to people who don't have the mental capacity to consent. So, for example, those people with dementia, autism and learning disabilities. And there are some differences with the LPS from the DOLS. So there's going to be a steering group of key stakeholders, including ourselves, Sky, ADAS and Cqc, meeting up to discuss obviously updates and progress on this project. The latest update we've got through is the 16-week consultation on the Code of Practice and regulations. That includes various documents such as a training framework, which will outline what people need to know and obviously to do. And that consultation finishes on the 7th of July. So this should have been obviously all taking place before then, but we're currently waiting a revised implementation date, as obviously April 2022 it's not going to be that date anymore. And LPS will for the first time apply to people in their own homes who are receiving care and support, as well as actually obviously still applying to people in residential homes as well. So that's a new thing, and also people over 16, whereas before with DOLS that was just for people over 18. So they're two key changes with LPS from DOLS. So what are we doing? Well, we're working with Sky and the Care Provider Alliance, and that's to develop learning resources to support social care organisations to put LPS in place. And the resources will be aimed at frontline workers, registered managers, regulated professionals, as you would expect. And we'll be focusing on the practice development in the workplace, how to support social care organisations with the change to practice that they'll need to make, obviously raising awareness of the deprivations of liberty, and also developing resources based on the Code of Practice and Regulation. And I will send this slide pack through to Christine, so you can have this, so don't worry about that. And resources, the Social Care Institute for Excellence, so Sky has a really good overview of LPS and a video, so that's worth having a look at. And also the Department of Health and Social Care has a fact sheet page. So again, if you want to kind of keep up to date with that and find out what's taken place so far and where we're at, there's all that information on there. Is that okay? No questions? Okay, I'll move on. For a long time now, we have had what we call the good and outstanding care resources, and we've had those for a number of years. We've got toolkits, we've got a number of resources in there, and we've actually made it more or less fully online now, although we do have a publication coming out later in the year when we've had more information through from Cqc about their inspection regime going forward. But we've updated it and it's online. It's been out for a few weeks now in the updated version. It's broken down into different areas depending on the type of service, and we've actually produced 2 modules to go with this. They're virtual learning modules. We've got a number of those, and these are £10 each, but you can actually claim £50 from WDF if you are a Ask WDS account holder, and obviously your data set is up to date. You can actually claim if you're a partner, obviously, with Norfolk and Suffolk Care Support. So there's 2 different ones depending on where you are with your journey. So we've developed one called Prepare for Cqc Inspection. And this has really come about because certainly as a locality manager, we get lots of new providers contacting us, obviously, very big thing, waiting for your first inspection, and really just to help them get into that mode in terms of what they need to know. So there's lots of resources, and one of which is this learning module. And then we've got improve your CQC rating. So obviously, depending where you are, there's lots of information in there as to how to support you to obviously improve your CQC rating. If you are good and outstanding already, there's also a really good toolkit and resources on there to obviously help you maintain your good and outstanding. So I think it's, you know, it's always good to keep learning, isn't it, with regard to CQC. So that's that. Celebrating social care. So following on from the event that was held to remember, obviously, social care, which was held on the 17th of March, which was remembering all those people that were lost during COVID and all the tremendous work that took place. We didn't want this just to kind of fizzle out, really, and we run a series of different focus themes really throughout the year. And for April, it's celebrating social care. So you may have seen some posts on social media, for example, or if you get our e-news, and it's really about obviously celebrating the good work that happens all the time, every day, as we know, and certainly we know that social care is still feeling the effects, obviously, from the pandemic. We're not out of it by any means, and we just want to recognise actually the fantastic job that social care do. So if you've got anything you want to post on social media, that's our hashtag celebrating social care. If you've got any stories that you want to share, we'd love to hear from you. We are sharing those. So there's a link on there, and when you get this through, you can actually click on there and see a little bit more detail as to what it's about.
Emma, we've just got a question in the chat box. I apologise, we've got planes going across, and it's okay. You might just hear me under that noise.
No, you're fine.
But, we've got a question from Steve Dorrington here. What's the procedure to ask CQC to reinspect to update ratings? Do you have any information on that, Emma?
No, I mean, they, I know when I last had some information about that they were still very much concentrating on the services that they felt needed the most support. And I know lots of providers were saying, you know, this wasn't fair, and obviously, you know, depending where you are with your inspection and your rating, you may sort of want to visit. I can find out if you can. I'll have a look in the chat afterwards and pull the question forward, and I can check with our central team if they know any more. I've not heard anything recently, I have to say. So I can get back to you about that. It was Steve Dorrington, was it?
That's right. Thank you, Emma.
Okay.
And we'll also put the question to our QA team as well. Thanks, Emma.
Yeah, okay. Webinars, I'm sure you're very aware of the webinars that we started during the pandemic to obviously try and support care services with these bite-sized information sessions, really. I like to think of them as sort of a library, really. So instead of taking a book off, you can obviously pull off different recordings that we have on a number of topics. So some of the key ones, as you can see there, recruitment, HR, training, etc. They sit there. They are sometimes updated if we feel the need, and we do have bite-sized resources to support many of these different topics. And we constantly, as well as reviewing them, we're also adding to that library, if you like, all the time. So some new ones that we've got coming up are Maximise Retention, which is with Neil Eastwood, who I'm sure many of you all know. Obviously, you know, he does a lot of work around recruitment and retention. So he's delivering a 30-minute webinar with regards to maximising retention. And then we've also got medicines from a regulatory perspective, part 2. So that is with CQC. The first part took place a few weeks ago. So we've got that one coming up. And then we've also got effective supervision. So 3 new ones coming there again. All the details are on the link and on our website under events. So very, very easy to find. We've also got one that we're just developing at the moment called Wellbeing Leadership. Obviously, wellbeing, we know, is at the heart of everything in terms of really good leadership, never more so than at the moment. Of course, people are still very much feeling the effects from the pandemic. And this is focusing on ways to obviously support leaders, to support their staff with tips and tools and ideas. And we are looking actually for people, if they've got any specific examples they would like to share as to how they embed this, obviously within their culture, things that they've done that they may have developed coming out of the pandemic, or things that you've always done that work really well. We'd love to hear from you. So if you are interested in helping us with the content or want to take part, then you drop us a line, that'd be fantastic. Or you can also register for the webinar on that link. And again, it's very easy to find on our website. So that's just a bit about the bite-sized resources that we've got in terms of some of the webinars that I've mentioned. Again, that's all linked on there. So they're really good just to help you get the most from those webinars. Onto podcasts. I don't know whether any of you have listened to these. I know we're all really busy, but it's really good sometimes if you know, driving home from work, to put them on and just sort of, although it's still social care and it's still working away, a lot of people say they're really good insight into other people's experiences within the sector. We're on series 2 now with the podcast, and this is episode 5, which I can't believe they're you know, really running away again. And this one is from Sanjay Dorona, who's the MD of The Close, which is a care home, an award-winning care home in Oxfordshire. And he moved the service from inadequate to outstanding in 5 years. So he just talks about his journey with that and his practices and training. And interestingly, his win folder. So I haven't listened to this one yet, but that sounds quite interesting. And also the Outstanding Society, which some of you may be involved in and attend their meetings. So that sounds really interesting. Deputy manager networks. So obviously we run registered manager networks and also deputy manager networks as well. So these are aimed specifically, as you would guess, for deputy managers, team leaders and assistant managers in the sector. They're facilitated certainly here in the East by myself and Karen. And it's a really good opportunity for deputies and those with more responsibility within social care to actually get peer-to-peer support and discuss any challenges that they might find. I think the next one's coming up in a few weeks' time. We will share that when we obviously have the date, and again it's on our website. But a really good session really. There's always a theme, so that could be about supervision, it could be about wellbeing, but it's a very focused session so that these managers and aspiring managers can get the most out of it. Registered manager membership. Some of you may be a member, but just to say, this is obviously something that lots of managers really like to have. It really endorses obviously their professionalism, and for £35 a year you get a number of different benefits which can change through the year. We get different offers, etc., but some of the key ones are additional monthly newsletters, you get an annual resource, and you get our social care managers handbook, as well as, for example, different programmes that might come up that you can access through your membership. So just a reminder of that. And we've got, I mentioned earlier about the good and outstanding care, and I say it's all online now, very easy access, but we are actually renewing the resource to actually produce a guide which will be sort of coming forward for the next year. As I said, we're just waiting really for further information from Cqc about their new assessment framework before we actually sign that off, but that will be a resource to accompany the online resources that we've got. So that will be coming out, and that will be exclusive for registered manager members. I don't know whether any of you have used this, but our advice line for managers is still very much available. So, for example, the CQC question we had, that our team there actually a really good source of information, not only for you but for us as well. Obviously we have a very wide scope in our role, and they have all sorts of different questions that they can answer, so we work very jointly with them. So if there's anything that you want to know, and if we can't get an answer straight away, we sometimes go to them, and you can go directly as well. So we work very much as a team to try and obviously meet, you know, the questions or any advice that you need. Our essential training, I don't know whether any of you have accessed this. This again was introduced a couple of years ago now during the pandemic, to support managers and trainers at the time who were having to change how they delivered training. Obviously, face-to-face training was not deemed as safe, and also not always practical. And these 3 programmes of training for new staff, for existing staff and volunteers is still available, and that's until the end of May. You do need a SWDS account, but you just need basic information with that. So you need your SWDS account number and some basic information about your service to access that. And we have 12 endorsed providers who are delivering that, and that is fully funded. So it's the knowledge elements really, and then obviously you need to sign people off as competent in the workplace, but that is still very much running. We're not sure if it will carry on for the next year, but it's still available at the moment. Digital learning for managers. So I mentioned earlier about the 2 new CQC ones. These are very, very popular. There's 11. You can buy them for £10 each, so you can pick and mix. So if you want to have a refresh, obviously, in terms of your knowledge as a manager, if you have an aspiring manager, sometimes these are put together as an internal programme, which is really useful. They're £10 each, or you can buy the full suite for £75, and you can actually claim £50 per completed module. So if you buy the whole package, it will cost you £75, but you can claim £550 through the Workforce Development Fund, obviously, if you're eligible. So that's obviously in place to fund your time to obviously and the cost of these to do them. So they're very, very popular in terms of claims for WDF. Something else that's popular is the Care Certificate Assessors e-learning course. This has been around for a little while. We still promote it because it's not everybody knows about it, but again, it's got some very good funding attached to it. This is actually completely free to access. You go through the e-learning for health account, and once you've registered, you can access 2 25-minute sessions completely free of charge. But you can also claim £100 back for actually undertaking that. So anybody you've got in your workplace who's assessing the care certificate, or you want a refresher, this is a really good programme. The Workforce Development Fund, so obviously Sorry, Christine.
Emma,
yeah.
Sorry, Emma, just to let you know, it's just 10 o'clock, so I didn't know how many slides you've got left, just to give you an idea of time.
Yeah, I haven't got many, I don't think. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, Emma,
I did cut them down. There was about 40, so I cut them down by half. Yeah, just a reminder, I've mentioned the Workforce Development Fund, obviously, a couple of times. You can still claim until the 31st of May if you're eligible. And just at the bottom there is, that's one of the CQC ones. And also we've got a mental health first aid one, which is a new one as well. So again, if you're eligible, you can still claim. With your SWDS, we've got a benefits bundle, which we add new discounts all the time. So again, if you're account holder, there's certain different benefits you can access for that. I think I've only got a couple more now. This is just one I wanted to put in because it's some new guidance and a range of best practice resources to support the workforce with regard to DNA CPR decisions. So I think that's a really useful one to have a look at. This is coming out of the recommendations from the CQC and their report Protect, Respect and Connect. And just a reminder about the wellbeing hubs, so they're still available. They've had funding for another year. So again, if you have staff or yourself as a manager and you want support with your wellbeing, they are still available. and also our workforce wellbeing resource finder, which we keep up to date. And again, in order, if you have a member of staff with a particular issue, then you can go through that and find support. And that is it. So so hopefully I didn't run on too much.
No, not at all. Well done, Emma. Thank you very much. I just thought I'd give you a brain check, as it were. So
yes,
thank you. Thank you. If you send them to us, Emma, we've had a few questions in there. Can we have the presentation so we can get it out to people, because it's really really useful. Ian in the chat box says, is it necessary to become a member of WDF to access courses and funding? If so, can we have a link for application? For WDF funding, Ian, you can become a partner in our WDF partnership, and we can take that up with you, Ian, after this. I'll get Katie to drop you a line on this. What's happening at the moment is we're just waiting, aren't we, Emma, for next year? At the moment we can't accept new people until we get confirmation of new funding. So there will be a little bit of a delay there until we know that we've got new funding. Once that happens, then we can go through a whole process with you, Ian. And it's quite straightforward, and Katie's really good at taking you through it step by step.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just had a quick look at the questions. So yes, Steve, I feel your pain with that, and I will see if I can find out any more. And obviously you've covered the WDF, Christine. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Yeah, I think it was actually Nicole Day that mentioned this about the delays in the inspection process. So yes, Nicole, yes, we do. We absolutely feel your pain. And yes, Peter's popped in the chat box as well, Ian, for you information about the workforce funding. But as I say, at the moment, until we've got the funding and the next year, the actual process for joining, we can't enact at the moment. So, but as soon as we're there, we can come back to you, Ian, so it's not a problem. Okay. All right, so thank you very much, Emma, for joining us. Were there any other questions for Emma before I introduce Tim? There's nothing in the chat box and no hands up at the moment, but that was incredibly helpful and useful, Emma, and we can send that out. There's lots of really useful information and some really great training resources there, so thank you. Okay, now we'll just go straight on, if that's okay. Tim, can I introduce you? Tim Weller from Norfolk County Council.
Good morning, everybody. And I have to first of all say that I can't actually hear you, so I'm lip reading at the moment. So I saw Christine say Tim, so I think that's my cue. So I'm hoping that the sound will come back for me shortly. I did hear everything up until Christine started talking, so I did hear Emma's presentation, then Christine started talking, it all went apart. So hopefully it will come back. Sorry, Christine, but hopefully it will come back. I've got little under half an hour, 25 minutes. So as people that have heard me before know that I always go exactly to time. I definitely won't need Christine to come in and say, Tim, it's 1:30, you really need to wind up now. So I'll stop in advance of the end to give time for questions. I don't have very many slides. I don't have as many as Emma. And hopefully that'll give time for some questions. When I was putting these slides together yesterday, I was thinking about the way that I normally do this for these meetings when I speak to you, and I usually start off by giving a high-level picture about where compliance is sitting across Norfolk. And I reviewed my slides at the end, and then I came to the last slide that I was going to put. And then I thought, no, actually, when I'm juggling it around, I really ought to put my last slide first. So that's what I've done. Because thinking back over the last couple of years, you know, thinking back particularly since the last time we had a live one of these AGMs, such a lot has happened, and such a lot you've had to face as a group of providers. I'm not going to say the word unprecedented challenges because that's been overused, I think, but you've faced some very unique challenges that you've never had to deal with before, and on top of that, you know, some of the personal challenges you've had to face, both in terms of the suffering that you and the staff have had to go through in terms of losses of residents and indeed some of your own staff as well. We're aware of that. So I thought it was really important to start off our presentation by saying thank you. Thank you to all of you. And I'm not just talking about there's a couple of outstanding providers on, but not just about outstanding providers, it's about anybody that's been providing care over the last couple of years. It's been exceptional, and you've done exceptional work to keep going. So I just wanted to recognise that and start out this presentation from that place, rather than start out where I normally would, about the shocking state of provision in Norfolk. So it's a real heartfelt thank you, because we know that you've done a huge amount just to keep going, So I want to just put that on the record. So having said that, I'll talk about compliance, because it'd be nuts if I didn't, because that's obviously qualities in my name, and talking about compliance across Norfolk is really important. So it will come as no surprise that the pandemic has not made life easier as far as compliance is concerned. In fact, since even in the last month, our compliance levels across the county have come down. So this is the position that we're currently in. So this is all regulated services in Norfolk. So anything that CQC touches, the ratings attached to them. There's one exception, and that's where there are services that are either new to registration or services that have changed their registration that may not have been inspected yet. So they're excluded from this, but that's only a very small number. It's less than 0.1%. But this is the situation. So we've still got a way to go in terms of getting those providers who are not in a position to generate themselves a compliant rating into a position where they can, or to take some action about that. Because otherwise, we're never going to improve this overall statistic. And I think there's something important to.
Tim, can you hear me? I'm so sorry.
In a very broken way. You can't see my slides.
Can't see your slides.
Well, let me see if thanks for pointing that out.
That's okay. It was Becky, so thank you.
Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see them now, because I'm perfect. Okay. Well, that means you've missed my thank you slide. Oh no. I'll tell you what. I'll work out how to remedy that. But that was the slide that I was talking about that nobody said they couldn't see. But anyway, that was our thank you to you. So this will all come out in the edit. So here we are with the current position around compliance. One of the things that I wanted to make mention of, though, was something that I noticed Nicole put in the chat during Emma's presentation. I think she's speaking with another provider, talking about the delay that happens when CQC have concerns about the service. They inspect, they award that rating, and then they may not come back for a long time. So particularly if it's a non-compliant rating, that's obviously really concerning for providers. And some of the rationale for that is actually the work that my team does. Is if we go into your service having been rated non-compliant by CQC, and we conduct a PAMS visit, for example, and then we rate you more highly than CQC did, then that may dissuade CQC from going back as quickly, because that itself is an assurance that we don't need to devote their efforts to going back, because matters have resolved themselves to a certain extent. We've had these conversations with CQC on numerous occasions about that confounding feature of the PAMS activity that we do, and they have started to make inroads into saying, you know, for providers that have ratings that are non-compliant, that they will use the fact that that we've rated you more highly through PAMS as a vehicle for saying that they do actually need to go back to verify our findings, and then that will change the rating. But they haven't made that clear in their methodology. That's what's happening in conversations that we've had with them local. But we're definitely pushing for that, because we recognise how much the CQC rating can make an impression on the way your service is used, for example. But you know, just to say that we've got that on the radar. But here's the picture. It's not a happy one, but it's really important to recognise that there's a huge group of people in the compliant range, and we thank you for that. So how about where does that make us sit within the Eastern region? Well, it's not in a great place. As far as the 11 authorities in the Eastern region are concerned, Norfolk is right at the bottom. But these figures are not on the graph are not from April, but they're from a few months ago, which is why it doesn't show me for 71%, which it currently is. But at that point, a couple of months ago, we were level pegging with Bedford at the bottom of the Eastern region. But more importantly, I guess, where do we sit in terms of the national figures for England? And that's in the bottom 10, 151 providers, which is really not a good place. And that means we really need to do some work to think about, one, why that is, two, how we can resolve it, but three, take some actual action and continue some of the action that we were taking before the pandemic in relation to ramping up some of our, if you like, equivalent of Cqc enforcement actions to help providers that are not compliant to account against contracts. So it needs some work about that. And the key thing about doing that piece of work is introducing our improvement and escalation policy. So I talked about this probably the last time I met you, not at the AGM last year, but the last time I met you as a provider group some months ago. And the thing is existent. So it's a draft document, and these two bits of processes have happened, and in order to be able to get it out to you. So we had some agreement between the joint partners that, one, that the thing is needed, that two, that they will sign up to it when it's an agreed document and it's been through the consultation process. So that's talking about the CCG partners and the County Council partners, and you as partners as well, as part of that arrangement via the consultation process. So the consultation is this month, and in fact you're going to get it this week. So that's my Easter present to you. You'll have it in time for Easter, and it's much healthier than Cadbury's cream and it's less likely to give diabetes. So I think the timetable for you having it to consult is 3 or 4 weeks. I'm going to say 4 weeks. I think that seems reasonable, given a patch of it is in Easter. And then at the end of that period, we'll have a look at your comments, and we'll make sure that we take those into account when agreeing the final document. I don't think you'll be surprised by anything that's in there. Providers will be very clear about how we use our plans process, for example. If you've experienced a plan, it talks about that. It talks about the support mechanisms we have in place. It talks about how we use restrictions. It talks about some notices that very few of you will be familiar with when we're taking high-level actions in terms of non-compliance, performance notices, quality improvement notices. So it talks about those as well. So they won't come as a surprise to most of you. But I really do value your feedback on it. I want to make sure it's right, and making sure that that you as providers are happy with the content is part of it. So please look forward to seeing that by the end of the week, and do come back to me for full comments, developmental or otherwise. Well, actually, probably developmental ones, the ones I really want to hear about, if it looks how we can change it. So that's how it works, and then we hope it'll be a finalised document, double badged by May. And that'll be probably at the latest, because we could do it sooner than that. It all depends on the volume of response we get to the public consultation. So that's your arrangement for that. And we're going to use that as the kind of underpinning policy for how we deal with non-compliance that's sitting around in the market at the moment. Some of it that's been sitting there since some of you have heard this from me several times before, but some of it's sitting there since ratings began in 2014. So we need to do something to change them. Okay, that's all the bad news. I'm going to give you some really good news now, and I'm not sure, because I wasn't able to be here right at the very beginning of this meeting, but I'm not sure how much Emma might have touched on. I know she did mention NCWDS in a couple of her bits towards the end of the presentation, but it is a really important piece. It is something that any provider that's got an NCC contract, you'll find that it's written into the contract. And the best news that I could have yesterday was that this is where we're at. I'm not sure I'm allowed to share. So Emma, if you're still on the call and I'm not allowed to share this, then you didn't see this. But I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share this bit. I know I can share the other statistics, but not maybe where we rank in the country. But anyway, I'm sure we keep it quiet, don't tell anyone. Norfolk is waiting 9th out of 151 local authorities as far as completion of the ACWDS is concerned. It is the important thing. It is a tool that's used besides giving you access to discounts on training and the other things that Emma's talked about. The critical thing for the statutory agencies is that it provides us with the information that you input about your workforce. And that's absolutely critical for us for our planning, to work out how we can secure funding and make a case for additional funding, perhaps where we can see we've got very specific needs that perhaps other bits of the country don't have. So the data that you input there is absolutely critical. So our overall positioning as a consequence of the work that you've done, the majority of you, the majority has put us where we are in the county, which is fantastic. And it's great that Norfolk can claim that prize for being in that position, and that for the 304 of you as of yesterday, so check the date you're asking it, that's why I was so late with the start, sorry Megan, the 304 of you that have completed registration on the system and updating it, that's really wonderful. So thank you for that. So to talk about the other two groups, just so you understand, so the 24 providers that are sitting in that inactive group, these are providers that have registered on the system but haven't updated in the last year to 2 years. So they are really comparatively quick win, I think. So it's a big sell for, if you know you're in that 24 group, then just get onto there. You know, don't make it an Easter job. Do it straight after Easter when you come back. And think about it, because I know that it does take time. I remember having to do it myself as a provider. I know it's laborious. I know that when you're inputting all the data, you're having to double check your figures all the time. But you know, make yourself some time. There's only 24 of you. If you get them over to probably a bit of a higher rating across the country, if just new providers just went on to do the bit, you've done the hard work in terms of getting registered, just a completion of the data set, that would be amazing. And then we're going to do a concerted effort as far as the 158 that are concerned, and they're probably not the people that are in this room, thank you. So they're the hard to reach providers. We're going to reach out to them. But what I need to tell you is that already for the PAMs that we've been doing since April, and I will explain if anybody doesn't know about PAMs. So PAMs is a provider assurance market management solution. It's an audit, a little bit of Cqc inspection. These are audits that we do on a risk-based basis. So if you've had a Cqc inspection that's been that's rated you non-compliant, then you'll be in line for PAMs, or if we've got concerns about your service, or if there's been an unnatural amount of whistleblowing or safeguarding events, these sorts of things that we push you towards a PAMs sooner rather than later. That's what PAMs is. It's immediate rather than Cqc on it produces a report. As a feature of our PAMs audit since April, we've been looking at compliance with providers completing the CWBS, and we are using your status in that respect to reflect a rating on that part of the PAMs that looks at that. So it won't impact on your overall rating unless other elements within the sub criteria are also rated non-compliant. But it's just as a means of recognising that the provider doing some work there, because it could adversely or it could positively affect your overall PAMs rating if you're doing it. So we want to make sure that that's recognised in that. So that sets out how we do that. But that process we'll make clear to you at the point where we're doing the PAMs, so it won't come as a surprise. We have the information already, so we know who the 158 providers are. So we'll be able to have a conversation with you before we come to give you an opportunity to join the system and get your registration in for the CWBS. Apologies, I can't see the chat, so if people are writing loads of questions, I just can't see them. So
Tim,
oh, the sound's come back.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Tim, just to say that we just had a comment back from Steve to say about how important PAMs and Cqc inspections are in relation to families making decisions, and so the longer it delays it, the harder it is, particularly for the home, the staff morale, but also embarrassing future families or existing families. Then Nicole says, you're absolutely right, thank you, it's great that it's on the agenda. Luckily the rating doesn't reflect on the service that we provide, however it's still a factor, and I'm sure that's the case for a lot of services. Yes, that delay is a real concern for many. And in terms of the WDF, I just popped in the chat here that N&SCS have promoted ADA, the uptake of that ASCWD for years and years, and have consistently see it rise. So we've done lots and lots of work with providers about assisting them, connecting them with Skills for Care, ensuring they're signed up. So I think it's a real collective sort of work that we've all done together. And you know, Skills for Care have got a great telephone hotline, helpline that we've also used to assist people. So I think it's actually keeping we've kept an eye on that all the way through, because obviously it wasn't called that before, and N&SCS. So we've done that because we're a lead contractor, but we've always found the Norfolk care providers really good with working with us. So I think that's a reflection too.
Yeah, excellent. Well done for managing the acronyms, because they are tricky. So yeah, they're right now. So yeah, so it's fantastic, and obviously that's been recognised, because that's why Norfolk's sitting where it is in the league table. Not that we're competitive, but Norfolk is doing better than most other local authorities in the county as far as that's concerned. But wouldn't it be brilliant if Norfolk could be on the top? So we've only got that little group of 30 something who, come on guys, we can just get on there, just put something on it. And then we'll do the work with the 130 or so to draw their attention to it, and also signpost them, because I know sometimes it's not reticence to getting around to it. It's just understanding how. Just show me the link, put things in front of me, and then make it easier for me. So we'll do that. We'll do that before we come to do it.
Tim, Emma's got her.
Oh, go for it, Emma.
Sorry, Emma's got her hand up as well.
Yeah, just really to endorse this and say that at Skills for Care, we recognise how challenging it's been for providers to complete all the different data. And I think the biggest carrot for the ASWDS has probably always been WDF. But of course, there's so much more to the data set than that in terms of the functionality, and really importantly, going forward, you know, key decisions are made around this data. The more data we've got, the more accurate picture we've got of the workforce in terms of getting funding and getting recognition for the sector. So we always appreciate that it's a challenge, and I think it's really key that we really you know, work with local authorities and we work with our stakeholders to ensure that, you know, we get the message out that we do appreciate obviously providers completing this. I'm not sure, I think Cornwall may be number one, I can't remember, but it was actually me that got that added on to the information, because I like a bit of competitiveness, and I thought that might just be good to have on there, just so you know you can see where you rank. So that's something that's prominent. And also we've been doing, just briefly, a very large piece of work with ADAS in the East, with regard to what the overall picture is in the East in terms of the data set, what good practice is, where we need to obviously increase the numbers, where we need to do more support, and we've actually got an enhanced action plan within Skills for Care to actually obviously promote this, and as I say, work with our stakeholders and providers more. So well done, fantastic work here in Norfolk.
Thanks.
Absolutely, that's absolutely the accreditation that we do at this moment. When things are looking so bad, it's fantastic that's great. So well done, everybody. This is my penultimate slide, so I've got 5 minutes. That'll give a little bit of time for. I'll race through this. So just to draw your attention to the fact, if you don't already know, I'm sure you would have done, particularly if you've been to any of the Q&A sessions that happened recently, about the significant change in government guidance. A number of pieces of guidance have been withdrawn since, well, I went on holiday for 2 weeks, and it seems like virtually everything was withdrawn during that time. So a number of pieces of guidance have been withdrawn this month, and we recognise that that's left some gaps in some as well. We have escalated. I've escalated that to Department of Health and Social Care, our local regional colleagues, on that, and it's been, they've also recognised that as well. So they're working hard to try to put something in place, or rather to push central government to put something in place to plug those gaps. At the moment, we recognise that leaves providers in a really difficult position with regards to particularly making admissions from the community. So we're behind you on that. We recognise that's a problem. We recognise that has an impact on discharge. The knock-on effects of that. You know, push themselves right back to hospitals, in fact. So we recognise that some work needs to be done there. So we'll let you know just as soon as that guidance comes, the new guidance comes out to plug those gaps. just a reminder that restrictions are in place. You'll know that already, but occasionally my team does get calls to say, you know, maybe somebody's caught sight of some changes to the general population and want to ask how that impacts on them in their regulated service. And the important thing to remember is that whilst your people, when they're not at work, are part of the normal population, when they come to work, they're still in a regulated setting, which means that all the guidance that is still there does still apply. So it's really important just to keep remembering to push that message home. I know that most people know that already, but just occasionally you do get a query that makes us think a little bit. Do some providers recognise that the guidance for the population isn't applicable to them until our own guidance changes to reflect that. So we're moving in that direction, but at the moment it's still there. So many also will know, but this is just a flag to remind people that that if you have an outbreak, that doesn't preclude you making an admission. So think of outbreaks now, COVID outbreaks now, a bit like respiratory type issues and those type of outbreaks and DMV outbreaks that you might have had pre-pandemic, and think of COVID a bit like that now. It's kind of weird to think of COVID like that, because culturally over the last couple of years we've thought about COVID accurately as the risk that it presents, which is a high one. It was a high one, so let's high one now. So the emphasis now is on providers' own risk assessment. We know that needs more work, but actually you'll find as the guidance begins to dissipate in terms of putting those greater restrictions on, it will be back down to you as part of the business as usual type exercise to do those risk assessments yourself. And there will be some news coming relatively shortly, I think, about local public health services and how they'll be available to you as far as COVID outbreaks are concerned. But certainly on a national level, UKHSA, formerly Public Health England, have already said that they're no longer operating a weekend service, so that your notification responsibilities as they were, as always have been. So if you do have an outbreak of any sort, whether it's COVID or respiratory diseases, then you do need to notify them in the way that you always do. But it just means that at the moment, certainly from a national perspective, you won't get a response in the way that you have done to date at a weekend to give you advice about what to do. Most providers know what to do because most of you have experienced COVID in some form or other. So that kind of advice is probably going to be less available over the weekends now, and there's a chance that going forward over the next couple of weeks, some of the more local ways of delivering that may change as well. I can't say that for certain, but that's just my guess. So what has not changed is your cure mode. So on the one hand, I say they haven't changed because they're still there, and IQS as a service still is there to support you. But there has been a change in the sense that we've made some reallocations due to movement of staff. We've had a member of staff retired. Those of you that I know have been provided that specific service from Susanne Duncan. She's retired after a long service with Norfolk County Council. We've had lots of messages saying, please don't let her retire. So, not let her retire, but she is a big loss to us. But we've had some changes in the team, so we've done some new allocations. So you will be, if you haven't already, be being introduced to your new QMO if you have one. We've kept stability for most of this team, but some providers will see some changes there. But we will. I have asked colleagues to contact you to introduce themselves, so you've got a named person to come to in the team if you get any queries or concerns. And now I've given myself literally no time to take questions. But since I have 5 minutes left, I'm hoping 5 minutes less to do it. And then Emma took a bit more just now. I'm hoping Christine might give me a few minutes just in case there's any questions that I haven't covered.
I'm sure that would be absolutely fine, Tim. We can be flexible. We can sort it out together. And we did take some of your time up as well, and take some off you. So I haven't forgotten. So does anybody have any questions for Tim? Either you can put your hands up or put anything in the chat. I just think the information that you provided, Tim, you know, all the data and everything is really useful and something for people to have a look back on. A bit of a plug as well for the consultation to get that into you, isn't it, around your improvement and escalation policy. That would be really good. Anyone that hasn't done their ASCWD, if they need any support, then we're here as well to help, as well as obviously Tim's team. So please do get in touch. I know you've got the list of those that haven't, and maybe, Tim, that's something you and I and our team can work on together, potentially, as well.
I probably need to get Emma's agreement to that, because I think that's information that's shared with local authorities. So I might have already scuppered my copybook.
It is, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in some ways it could just be informally, like you may find more information and signpost rather than letting us know. Just get them to. It's a signpost system.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just if we can have the links, please. I'm one of those on the list, I think. So Nicole, can you just say which links you're talking about? Is that for ASCWD or? I think, oh, don't be sad. We'll sort you out. Yeah, okay. There we go. We've uncovered one who has been very honest and open. How about that? I think to be honest with you, I think you deserve one of these, Nicole. So for being absolutely transparent and honest, and we'll help you.
Yeah, there's a pastry in the post.
Perfect. I don't think there's any questions that I can see. I don't think there was anything further in the past. I think we've gone through everything, Tim. So are you happy to share your presentation and we can get that out as well, Tim?
Yeah, he's already sent it over, so that's ready to go.
Oh, yes.
Top marks to Tim.
Oh, always top marks to Tim. Thank you very much. Oh, that's great, Tim. Thank you very much. So yes, I'm on to Becky now, but just to say, if anybody does have any questions for Tim, then still put them in the chat box and we can always pick them up either in this session or afterwards. It's not a problem. So Becky, welcome to the meeting. Did you want to introduce yourself and where you're from to everybody? Thank you, Becky.
Christine, and thank you, Tim, for not bringing broccoli this time. I'm still slightly traumatised by the last meeting where I had to follow broccoli. So at least there weren't any root vegetables this time. So yes, my name's Becky Booth. I'm Deputy Manager to Norfolk Safeguarding Adult Board. And for those of you that don't know me, I have a background in adult social care, so I'm a qualified social worker, and I've spent 10 years in the specialist safeguarding adult team as a safeguarding adult practice consultant. 2 years ago, moved to supporting Norfolk Safeguarding Adults Board. So I've got a presentation to share, so we'll just have a quick go at that. Now, I should say that up until Thursday afternoon, I had a completely different presentation organised. Had a slight panic when I then saw the agenda in my name with MCA next to it. I wanted to say a particular thank you, which you'll probably see in my notes page, but for Mark Pepperell from Eye Care Service Norfolk, because he sent me an email after the last session that we did in November, which was also around the Mental Capacity Act, and had some interesting thoughts around particularly supporting people who make unwise choices in terms of care services. So that just made me kind of think, and perhaps thought it was a good opportunity to look in a little bit more depth around the unwise choice as part of the Mental Capacity Act. So let me just make sure I'm on the right screen. So this was a slide that I used in the last presentation back in November, and this has the sort of key principles and everything. So I just highlighted that one, and the wording that I'd used on that particular slide, which was talking about remembering that adults have the right to make decisions that might be seen by others as wise. You might not agree with those decisions, but it doesn't make it the wrong one for them. So I thought, what's the actual wording in the legislation? Because I'll put a little bit lower in there. In practice, we tend to translate that particular piece in a number of ways. And in particular, it's become, or it can be used to explain why people or agencies actually don't intervene or don't do something when there is a known risk. So the actual wording is that a person is not to be treated as unable to make a decision merely because he makes an unwise decision. And so the key word here is merely, more than making an unwise decision, if you like. So essentially the point that's being made in the actual act in the legislation is that somebody would not automatically lack capacity based on another person's judgment of their decision. So for example, taking risks, but there could still be an impairment or something or an issue with thinking that would make us mean that we need to look at it a bit more detail. So it's not quite the same as having a right to make unwise choices, which I feel sometimes, and in, you know, for any people really looking at mental capacity or doing mental capacity assessments or in undertaking interventions, for me can suggest a subtext of actually, well, we can't do anything, we can't intervene. And obviously in terms of safeguarding, this can have quite a significant impact. So as I think Emma mentioned earlier, the new Mca Code of Practice is out in draft form for consultation. So I was looking at that as well, thinking about the sort of key differences and things that we need to be aware of. And actually in that, I noticed that the guidance provides some additional information around the first principle, that assuming capacity should not be used as a reason for not assessing capacity. So again, thinking about unwise choice, sometimes we kind of go, oh, well, there's no impairment, you know, they can do what they like and that's that. But actually it's a little bit more subtle than that. And in fact, what they've done is said is, first of all, is there a decision to be made, and do we have a concern about the person being able to make it? And then is there a reason behind that? Is there impairment sitting behind that difficulty making a decision? So it kind of also distinguishes between considering and assessing capacity. So I think this is something that we have a lot of discussions around in some of our sort of multi-agency partnerships. In the guidance we've put on the website, I've tried to distinguish between the MCA, the Mental Capacity Act, which gives us principles to think about people's capacity. I think I did this in the last slides as well, and the Mental Capacity Assessment. And they are two different things, but irritatingly, they have the same acronym, MCA and MCA. So there isn't, although we try and ward against generalising about capacity, I guess there's still room to consider capacity. So even if, say, somebody has got a specific diagnosed impairment or you know, really obvious difficulty, you're still considering that person's ability to make decisions, and therefore thinking about what might lie behind that decision making, what the risks are, and then you can apply and use the principles of the Act and undertake an assessment if required. And so again, the Code of Practice is kind of trying to say, don't just leave it, actually sort of work through and think about it. And they put in there that it might also be necessary in that sense if the person is proposing to take a decision that is unwise or significantly out of character, which is thinking about the context of that decision making. And the Code of Practice is saying that failure to think about that can actually just be just as harmful for the person as a very hasty decision that they lack capacity. So the Mental Capacity Act is trying to stop people from just assuming that people lack capacity or making decisions on their behalf without information or evidence of that, but actually doing the exact opposite. So assuming that somebody has capacity and just letting them go off and do things that may be risky or cause them harm can be just as bad. So it's really just thinking around that context of the whole person and their decision making. One of the things that Michael's email said was particularly in relation to somebody who had some self-neglect and hoarding behaviours, being supported in the community, and thinking in part about the judgment of people around or people entering that property without perhaps seeing the individual in the middle of it, and what their experience was and is and what their capacity is to make those decisions. And it just made me think, when we talk about unwise choices, do we actually also judge, which was really Michael's point, but it's quite a good one. So we talk about unwise and there's a certain amount of us going, well, I wouldn't do that, or that's wrong. But in a way, you know, why do we think that? That's potentially our opinion or our perspective on that risk. But does it actually flavour our responses? So thinking about somebody who's not engaging in services, do we kind of say, well, they won't do it, they won't come to us, you know, and sort of badge it that way? Well, it's not our fault, it's their fault. And I think again, this tends to link into what we used to call hard to reach, and we now call seldom heard, because it's all about where the blame sits. So the concern around thinking about unwise choices in that negative way means that we're kind of saying, well, that person's, you know, doing it on their head, be it. So it's just important to just sort of be aware of that and how it might influence our responses, particularly if we're trying to support somebody and we're really getting nowhere. You know, do we get rather fed up and negative, and actually do we stop offering and do we stop trying to support because of that? So obviously all of us have a duty of care. Board NSAB, we talk a lot about professional curiosity. It's in a lot of our, you know, big case reviews, small case reviews, frankly. Everywhere you look, we're saying, why don't people ask those questions a little bit more? In the case of unwise decisions, mental capacity, provision of care, commissioning of care, we have this duty of care. So we should be thinking, actually, why is the person making that choice? I think it's increasingly difficult, and as Tim was saying, and certainly we've seen the intense pressures on everyone, and sometimes the problem can be that in a world where we are, you know, running to stand still, trying to provide services, there is a natural inclination where if people are accepting services or making what we consider wise choices, that's a lot easier, quicker. You know, you're able to do something there, and I think it can be a trap to fall into, that of just kind of going, well, they don't want something and they have capacity and that's it, and we go. But I suppose what I'm making a bit of a plea for is thinking about, why is that person making the choice that they're making, that is sort of not the one that people around them think they should be doing. So we're thinking about the context for that person. We're also, as a board, doing or trying to sort of promote some work around trauma-informed approaches in practice. But think about what sits behind that decision. So often particularly thinking about non-engagement, or perhaps people refusing to have support with personal care. Sort of two immediate things I thought about was, you know, what's happened in the past? Is there something in the background that they may well not particularly want to tell you or not have told you, that makes it difficult for them to accept the support that's being given, or to make that more positive choice away from risk? I was thinking about addiction, so drug, alcohol, pain relief, you know, smoking, whatever we're addicted to. What's kind of, you know, how does that realistically enable choice? You know, if it's kind of a compulsion to do something, are there physical reasons why things are happening that make it difficult? That if you're sitting back and looking at it from outside, you think, well, actually it's really clear, really obvious choice. You know, the person with lung cancer who refuses to give up smoking, you know, how ridiculous is that? But actually, you know, what's really behind that, and thinking about the choice that people want to make. Mistrust is a big one. I'm working from particularly for social care, remembering the occasions where I've gone into people's houses, and I had one couple who were literally shaking in front of me, an elderly couple shaking, who'd been worrying because a social worker was coming out to see them. And you know, you kind of turn up and it's like, oh my goodness, no, that's really not what we're here to do. We just here to, you know, talk about what it is and how we can support you. But it's thinking about how people are perceiving what you're saying and what you're doing, or what you're trying to do. You know, if you're coming towards somebody with a washcloth, and somebody with dementia, for example, that can't understand it so well, so it's slightly out of what's it, but you know, it's like, are you explaining what you're doing? Can they understand what you're trying to support them with? Does the person really have all the relevant information? So this is, I know, I was just going to say, there's several faces here that I've seen before. It's really nice. So obviously I've worked with providers and sometimes talked about these sort of things. So thinking about relevant information, and I haven't come up with a very good example, or haven't come up with an example for that, but I suppose it's about making sure that you're not just giving a kind of light touch explanation of the decision that people want to make. So you're making sure you've got people, or you're giving people the opportunity to really think it through, talk it through, again, in the guidance, particularly where you're talking about people that potentially have capacity and are making choices, do they really understand what those choices are? Have they got, do you need to support them? Somebody, for example, who's being financially abused by a family member, it's all very well saying, well, I think they're abusing you. You know, why don't you let, I don't know, Norfolk County Council become appointees or something? But if you don't actually give the person the evidence and set out exactly why you think it's a good or a bad idea, then are you actually enabling them using the principles of the Mental Capacity Act, supporting them to make positive decisions? And there was another one around, do they have more than one realistic option, i.e. actual choice from their perspective? So I'm now feeling hungry thinking about brownies. So we talk about Hobson's choice, a rock and a hard place. If you are, for example, this is a bit wider, but offering somebody refuge from domestic abuse, but the place that they have to go won't accept pets, for example. So you can say that actually you've got a choice, you can leave, you can go, but what you're also saying is that you've got to leave behind something that's been, is a part of the family, something that's actually been really supportive to you, for example, dog or a cat. And therefore, does that skew the choice? Is it a realistic option for that person? Or you have to leave your teenage children because actually they don't accept children. So just have a mind to the choices that you're offering. And the example I just put on there about somebody refusing to have a shower, so that was a really simple one, but saying, they might be used to baths, they might be used to strip washing. Very simply, they might not like water on their face. Having a shower is something that lots of us are very used to, but again, I'm particularly thinking about older people. Back when I started, that was quite unusual, having showers. It was all about baths and getting in and out of baths. Well, somebody just might be really very private, and sometimes we can kind of go along thinking, this is the care you need and this is what I need to give you. Yes, executive capacity. Oh, and I was actually just going to give a really quick example of oh no, I'll leave that till the end. Actually, I'm going to carry on. So executive capacity. So this was another thing in the Code of Practice. So this is where somebody is ostensibly, has been assessed, or doesn't have an impairment, is believed able to make their own choices, makes a decision, but then actually doesn't carry out that action. And so executive capacity is something that we've really wrestled with since the Mental Capacity Act came in. And again, it's something that's starting to really come through in some of the reviews. And it's a very difficult one because, again, it can be quite subjective. But the new Code of Practice is saying that actually, if the person, even if the person has the capacity to make the decision at the time of the assessment, if they're not able to carry out that act, the act required from the decision, and they're saying there is evidence that this happens repeatedly, it could be said that they lack capacity to make that decision. So it's just kind of clarified that a little bit more. An example that I've put on there is around supporting someone with a mild learning disability with her finances. So they may well be able to manage their kind of day-to-day, what have I got in my pocket, and be able to go and buy little bits and things that they want to. They might well be able to understand the risks. There's a friend that keeps on asking them to lend money. They might be able to go through the whole thing and go, yeah, I don't really want to lend them money, and actually this is what I'm going to take less money out with me or whatever, or I'm going to, I'm going to say to them, I don't want to do that. But then actually they're not able to resist it. And say that they didn't think. So there's a degree that in the moment the action needs to take place, that they actually can't process it and retain and rationalise it. So that's a bit of sort of clarification perhaps around where we might be able to consider executive capacity in more detail. So even if you have somebody, again, who is assessed to have capacity to make those decisions, this was around support to minimise risk, and kind of about how I've put at the bottom there that we still work and support best interests for an individual even if we can't impose them. And this is one of the things, the examples that that I used in the last presentation around the SAR for Joanna, John and Ben. And particularly two things that I just picked out was that the machines to support their breathing at night weren't being regularly used, and their weight and diet were poorly managed. They were both very overweight. So thinking about the care being provided, those things around eating and diet and use of those machines was said to be their choice. However, those things were also contributory to their deaths, which we could say would be essentially preventable. So I put on there that responsibility remains with us to try and make an effort to support people to make those better choices. And in those sort of cases with Joanna and Ben as well, involving others to minimise that risk. So if people are doing something that you feel actually is putting them at higher risk than if they weren't doing it, who else might you be able to bring in and sort of talk to the person about it? Thinking back to that relevant information, do they really understand the risks around overeating sugary food, not using that machine to support your airways at night? Or is it just, you know, oh, it's uncomfortable and that's kind of the end of it? So again, thinking about the context, it also depends on the level of risk involved. So again, you need to think about, you know, weighing up, potential interventions, suggestions, and all the rest of it against the actual risk and what you think might happen. Actually, this was my choice. I was out at the weekend with a relative who is 85 and tablet controlled diabetic. And he ordered baklava at the end of the meal with ice cream, and not just one bit, 3 bits. And I was sitting there going, oh! But, you know, from his perspective, able to make those decisions, 85, doesn't do it very often, just went out. But it's those sort of things. It's fine as a one-off, you know, and if you understand what the risks are. But to continually just do what you like in that sense, without really understanding the risk to yourself, that's where you need to be exploring with individuals in more depth, or potentially thinking about what can you offer actually to prompt those better choices. So there was just some of my thoughts about how we respond to people that make unwise choices. So it's a real plea again, don't give up or walk away. Unfortunately, again, some of the sort of safeguarding adult reviews and similar are around people that have you know, where it's been said somebody had capacity and there was nothing else we can do. You may not be able to do very much, but it's actually about kind of being there or offering a support or a safety net. Supporting positive risk taking, thinking about what that unwise choice is it really bad? Is it really unwise? What are the actual risks? Is it our singular perspective? Do there need to be an MDT to look at, actually, let's weigh this up as a multidisciplinary team. Bit around helping others to understand. So it is really difficult when, for example, perhaps you're supporting somebody in a care setting that won't change their clothes, been in the same clothes for 3 weeks, just will not take them off. You know, a visitor or somebody comes in, you know, from the ambulance service and immediately goes, my God, this person hasn't changed their clothes in 3 weeks. You know, how do you help other people to understand that actually that's their choice? If they were sitting in their own home, they could sit there quite happily. It doesn't matter if they smell whatever. The risk tends to come if there are, for example, infected wounds or continence issues, you know, that's actually impacting on their health. But as somebody once said to me, nobody ever died from smelling bad, apart from the infection bit, obviously. So yes, supporting others. Real thing around review, monitoring, support, review, put it in there twice, things change. And again, we can make decisions where people feel we have capacity, really unable to understand the decision, but a week later they've got a urinary tract infection, or they've got a diabetic high, or their mental health changes. Something changes, and in fact it can be very small, but it's just a matter of just keeping an eye on that regular review, especially where the risks are high. Make sure you're just keeping that in and checking. So again, being clear about the actual impact, thinking about the ways you might still be able to minimise that risk, and obviously recording your rationale. So recording decisions that people make. or the people that support them make. So if you have a social workers come in and done a mental capacity assessment on someone, be really clear about what the outcome of that is and what the actions are for you following that and what the impact is on the person. Oh, so it was just a bit I didn't know, because we have got like a whole 4 minutes, but if there were any particular unwise choices that you've had to consider or manage with the people that you support, I didn't know if there's any particular ones that sprang to mind for people. It is really complex. I'm not going to pretend it isn't. But it was just a quick opportunity if anyone wanted to mention anything or any positive things they've come across.
Thank you, Becky. So over to everyone. Is there anything that anyone wants to bring up maybe as a particularly challenging situation that you've been in, or maybe something that's turned out well because you've kept reviewing and you've kept looking at alternatives or bringing people in? Anything at all that anyone can, wants to talk about? And I can remember, Becky, one case which was, again, a lady who was known as a hoarder. And this was quite some time ago now, but the difficulty we had was that she had lots and lots of paper all the way in her hall. One room you couldn't actually get into because it was just piled high with bits and pieces and bags. And then in her kitchen, she actually had an open fire. So there were all sorts of issues around, obviously, fire safety, concern about neighbours' safety, choices, and so on. And that was a really, really challenging situation, because she clearly, obviously, didn't want to leave her home. She wasn't going to change her hoarding, because that was what she did. And so we had to look at quite creative ways of trying to minimise risks. But we had to bring in all sorts of different people with her consent, because she still had capacity. But it's that thing, really, isn't it, Becky, we keep coming back to, is it's a judgment about what's unwise. It was a really tricky one. Oh, here we go, Steve. I had a family who felt their relative was unsafe at home, but the NCC were not willing to arrange a capacity MCA or best interest meeting. I meant to ask, what options and procedures should they follow? Would you have any suggestions on that, Becky?
I mean, you do. So again, thinking about, I'll just hang on that final one up. There we go as well, while we're just talking. So the point is that, first of all, the Act does say, you generally need to think about what the decision is the person is making and what the situation is. Is there a decision to be made? And then is the person unable to make that decision? So it's kind of difficult. Family members who feel that relatives are unsafe come at it from a certain perspective. So adult social care will hopefully, in the main, look at the individual. So really they're there to support the person in the house. So it may well be, I don't know the details and without going into it, but they would only arrange an MCA assessment over a particular decision. So a mental capacity assessment is specifically about one decision that needs to be made, and you need to do a separate mental capacity assessment for every decision that needs to be made. But there has to be a reason, because of the way it's set out. If you don't have some, I think the second bit is there an impairment that is affecting that decision? So you can't do a best interest meeting until you know the person lacks capacity. So without knowing the details of the first step, exactly, Tim, is to assume capacity unless there's evidence to the contrary. So it could well be that they could look at evidence as to I'm trying to even think what the decision would be. The decision would be around leaving the property, I suppose, going into care, maybe. So you'd need to be able to discuss with them, I suppose, what the concerns were and what the risks were. And it would only be if that individual said, you know, that you can be falling really badly at home. You can be, you know, really struggling. You can be confined to one room and waiting for people to come in 24 hours a day. You know, worked with a number of people like that. But the bottom line is that if you're able to kind of recognise that risk and say, that's how I want to live, I do not want to go into residential care, I do not want to leave the house, then you have the right to do that. And even should it come to a best interest decision, again, those risks would really have to outweigh you know, the concern around potentially moving someone against their will or depriving them of their liberty in that way would have to really outweigh those risks of being at home, and that would not just fall on what the family think. So in a way, the social worker is an advocate for the individual in the middle, and has the, you know, the duty to look at what those risks are and weigh them up. And now, if then there are decisions to be made, then you'll carry out a Mental Capacity Act assessment. But one of the things about MCA is be really clear about the decision to be made, because an assessment is around a decision. The Mental Capacity Act talks about the principles of that assumed capacity, you know, supporting people to make their own decisions. So it is complex. And I've gone 2 minutes over time.
Well, thank you, Becky. That was very helpful indeed. And will you be able to share your presentation so we can get that out as well, Becky?
Yeah, I'll email. Am I emailing it to Megan?
Yes, please. That would be fantastic. There is some more chat going on in the box. We've got somebody here, Ellie, formerly working in the substance misuse world with young adults, 19 to 24-year-olds. This was the area which required very careful navigation. Can absolutely understand. The family gave evidence of kitchen issues, falls, wandering out of the house in inappropriate hours and weather. The end result was an admission to hospital. The daughter lived 100 miles away. Yes, it is that. Where do you go for support when you can see things are not as they used to be, and there are signs that things are changing? Yeah, I don't know the case, I don't know the details, but it would seem like that could have been a referral for assessment, I would think, Becky, would you not, to adult social care in the first instance? But yeah, we'd have to go into it in a little bit more detail. But thank you very much, Becky. That was really helpful. Megan, I believe we've got a particular activity to do.
We do, but we're a bit tight on time. Did you want me to do that after Suzanne's spoken?
Susanne, I know, just to explain that unfortunately we haven't got James Bullion with us today. A little bit of a mix-up, so we're hoping that he'll be here next time. But Susanne, would you be happy for? Oh, there you are, Susanne. Would you be happy? Hi, Susanne. Would you be happy for us to do this little activity, and that gives you a little less time, or would you want all the time?
No, that's fine. I don't think I need all the time. No, that's fine. You want to do that now?
That's lovely, Susanne.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
That's
Okay, we'll just
brilliant.
do a little activity.
One moment. Let me get it on.
I'm very intrigued.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And we're just having thanks from people around Becky's presentation as well. So thank you, Becky.
So everyone, we're trying this out for the first time, so hopefully it's going to work for everyone, but we're just trying out a Mentimeter survey. So if you have your phone on you, either scan the QR code that's come out, or go to www.menti.com and enter the code that's on the screen, the 2348232 number. You're going to be given a question, and that question is basically around training, the options that you sort of use to communicate training to your staff and co-workers. We're asking you to rank that training, so from first to last. Oh, it should be up, Ellie. If not, let me pop. It should just be up on your screen, Ellie. Everyone else is saying they can see it.
Yes, we can see it. Maybe you can't see the screen. Right, okay.
I'm
can't
just
see? Oh,
I'm just popping it in the chat as well. So Ellie, I'm just sending, yeah, oh, and Tim's put the QR code. That's very helpful as well. And there's the website if not. So yeah, if you can rank those from sort of the thing you use most to the thing you use last. I can see 7 people have done that already. Oh, we're up to 8. How exciting. I'll give you a couple more minutes and then we can actually see those results in live time, which will be brilliant, and we have to see sort of what everyone does use. Oh, 14 already. Well, this is working. Thank you. I'm so pleased. Nicole, yes, you've got your hand up.
I might be being silly, but I'm seeing on my phone on the screen. So it's asking me a question, which of the below do you use the most to inform your staff of training? And all I've got is a heart.
I think it's still loading.
Does that?
Yeah, it should be a
mine is
drop-down.
still loading.
Oh, okay.
So
Am I being impatient? Sorry.
No, not at all. Mine's taking a long time to load, so I don't know whether.
Let me go.
It's just come through, Nicole.
There we go.
Yeah, mine has as well.
There you go.
Mine has as well. Thank you.
There you go. That's all right.
There we are. So it should now give you the options, which is email, team meeting, printed flyers, supervision, team members. So if you can rank those, how you use them, that would be really, really helpful. Thank you, everyone. And then we should be able to see those results start to come up. Oh, there we are. Yep. Oh, this is exciting. That's brilliant. Thank you, everyone, for filling these out. Again, I'll just give it a couple more minutes just so we can get everyone's feedback. It's probably the longest I've gone without sneezing for all of 20 minutes. So I'll savour it while I can. Brilliant. So that is 16 people have come back on that. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Again, we just wanted to try that out as something that we might be doing going forward within our meetings, just as a way to make them a little bit more interactive and to get some information sort of as we're talking as well to inform any further conversations. Certainly that's something that will be coming up when we talk about our slides as well later. So thank you, everyone. I'll stop sharing now and I'll let Susanne. Yeah, and it is like the presidential election results, yes, but hopefully, you know, they'll go better. It's a heavy topic there, Tim. Heavy topics, you know, for a light-hearted thing. Right, I'll take that down. And Susanne, if you want to go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Megan. And thank you, Susanne, for stepping in.
Sorry, I was just trying to get my mute button pressed there. Thank you very much, and apologies from James as well. He's sorry he can't be here, but I'm really pleased to be able to attend today and represent Adult Social Services. I need to just give a bit of a warning. I've had the most dreadful Wi-Fi connections over the last 2 days. I've got my phone at the ready though, so if I need to, I'll move over to that. I've also had COVID as well, so if I go into a coffee fit, it's just if I talk too long, I'm struggling a bit, but we'll see how it goes. And I love those Menti surveys. I think they can be really are going to be really helpful for us actually in future, just to get some of those sort of quick nuggets of information back. So first, I just want to say, you know, I'm really proud of working as part of adult social care in our county, and part of my job is to try to support more people to want to do the same. As AD covering workforce. And the work of Norfolk and Suffolk Care Support, and indeed NORCA, has been tremendous at promoting adult social care and supporting the initiatives to recruit and retain people, but also to support the development and skills of people working in the sector. And obviously attracting new people in the sector is key. And it's been great to start to see the tweets from colleagues in Norfolk and Suffolk Care Support and colleagues across the council back in schools and colleges and local careers fairs again, you know, because we need that new blood. We need more people to be aware of the sector and to come and join it as well. And so it's great to see those sorts of things starting up again. Also, there's been initiatives with local district council and DWP to help people into social care for the first time through the Academy model and Earn as You Learn, and they're all initiatives that we want to continue with in 22-23. You know, some of those are only just quite, you know, embryonic and just starting out, but there's some really good stuff in there, and I think, yeah, we want to just try to support people to understand about social care. I think there's a lot of myths and misunderstanding about what happens across social care and the breadth of work as well within our sector. So trying to get that across to people and to support people to make those first steps into the sector is going to be really important. And the Wellbeing programme has also been used by people across social care over this last year, and that's been really important. And it was important at any time, but especially now. And again, we want to continue that to ensure that this is available going forward as well. The other thing around supporting, and I think it's important that we look at recruitment and also retention as we go forward, is the people that have undertaken some of the fully funded courses through the Developing Skills in Health and Social Care. You know, it's been some fantastic stories, and thank you to all providers who have supported staff to be able to access those courses. I love hearing some of the feedback, you know, how people have really gained in confidence and what that's meant to them. It's been really interesting, some of those stories as well, from people who have maybe worked in the sector for decades even, and then done this training and what it's meant to them, and actually how they've been able to, say, feel more confident in the work that they've been doing. So much so important, I think, that we are supporting staff throughout their careers, and that's part of, I think, some of the message that we're looking at in terms of career cares. Can't say it properly. Careers. That it is making sure that we have routes to be able to help people to, you know, still, whether it's about topping up their skills or developing and being able to move on and move through social care as well. So really important that we can get some of those really great examples of how people have been supported. And I think, you know, from my own perspective, I mean, I think feeling invested in by your employer is a really powerful motivator. I think it instills that commitment, and hopefully that's what people will have been seeing with people who have receive some of that training. So that programme is still offering fully funded training to anyone working in the sector, and I think hopefully as people are looking for other ways that we can try to look to retain staff, can also use that as a really important programme going forward. International recruitment has obviously been taken forward by a number of providers following the change in legislation, and actually the grant that we offered as part of the workforce recruitment and retention grant has been oversubscribed, so a lot of providers seeking to go down that route. I'm really hoping that we will be able to fund all of it, though, although it has been oversubscribed. So we're looking at ways that we can do that at the moment. And Helen Wright, who has started as our external workforce manager, we'll be taking that forward as well to see what other opportunities and ways the council can support this, and also how we can work with health as well, because our health colleagues do an awful lot of international recruitment, and I think, you know, it's thinking about going forward, are there ways that we could work more collaboratively? Is there any way that we can do that then more efficiently, which starts to reduce some of the costs associated with that? So I think the workforce challenges, coupled with increased acuity, the ongoing outbreaks of COVID, have probably made this the hardest 6 months in health and social care that we've seen. And I think, fact is, this currently isn't really abating. It still is a very pressured system, and that is being reported right across the country, which I think much of this is still to do with staffing and outbreaks. I know James wants me to pass on his thanks for the work across the sector to enable the continuity of services and the continued support to enable people across the county to live their lives, despite the challenges that I know that have arisen, behind the scenes, what that's meant in terms of managing staffing rotas, reorganising services, managing, mitigating the risks in order to keep the show on the road. And so a huge amount of thanks and admiration for the work that has been done across our county. I mean, I think the reality is, with the challenges, it has meant that more families and carers have needed to also support people. That has been a fact and continues to be a fact. And we've had things across the system, and I know Norfolk isn't alone with this. So we've seen the creation of a temporary care hotel. Who would have dreamt of that? But I think this doesn't shape the future, though. And I think that's what we now need to look forward to, is about actually what do we want the shape of care to look like in the future. We know we've had to have some temporary measures in this winter, say the likes of what we haven't ever seen before, to manage through this. But that shouldn't shape how things look like in the future. So it's important we can develop our system to be sustainable and to deliver quality provision to everyone wherever they live in Norfolk. And I think we're at an important crossroads here. I mean, firstly, the government social care reforms are at least shaking up the dialogue. I mean, I think we've all got lots of opinions. I'm sure everyone in this room have got lots of opinions about them, but it is up there. It's on the agenda. It's happening. And the care cap will be implemented from autumn 2023. But this year, the councils will need to undertake a fair cost of care for home care and older people, residential and nursing, and submit market sustainability reports this autumn. Although this doesn't obviously include the whole sector, I think it'll be naive of us to assume that this doesn't have a wider impact. Part of the conversation will raise some fundamental questions about the value of care, about what we are doing as nationally, as a country, around supporting social care. So I think it will reflect beyond maybe where I've had personally had concerns about how social care reform still seems quite restrictive to me, but I do think it creates a broader evidence base which will have impact right across the system. But we do need your help to do this. It feels a real chance to set out to the government the evidence, and we need your first-hand knowledge as part of that. Now, councils are getting some money to support this, but I think the national view is this will not be enough to really be able to reach what we would see as sort of parity. So it will be, I think, an ongoing dialogue. It will be ongoing lobbying, but this is such an important first step as part of that, and I'm really looking forward to working with you as we try to develop our market sustainability report for Norfolk. Secondly, this year we've got the creation of the integrated care system in July this year. This will operate with an ICS board and partnerships, and they will have place-based partnerships that will include representatives from all parts of the system, including provider representation as well. I think importantly for me, we as social care, we're a key part of the ICS. We're not an invited extra. And I think, any of us who are involved in those partnerships and involved in some of those place-based boards and discussions. We need to make sure that we feel like that we're really putting forward what we need for social care to operate efficiently and effectively in Norfolk, and to provide that right level of challenge and support, and to be a really strong partner as part of that. I think the pandemic's taught us that we need all parts of our system to be working well to make the system operate, and to deliver quality services and best outcomes for residents in our county. I think we've known this to be true prior to this, but it brought it into really sharp relief. And it's also true for people of any age that need support from multi-teams across health, social care and within the community. And I think the ICS gives us a real opportunity to get this right, to look at where it works well, to focus on things like population health, investment, the best models of care for individuals. But I think it also enables us to look at the whole infrastructure that we need for social care to thrive. So what are those relationships with primary care? Is it the same? Can we see that it works well in some areas of the county and not in others? What do we need to learn from that? What about affordable housing and how that's impacting on the workforce, transport links? So some of those sort of, the infrastructure and the networks, but the ICS gives an opportunity for everyone to be around the table and part of that discussion. So it's really important, I think, for joining up some of those dots and getting some of our agenda on the agendas of other organisations that might not be thinking at some of these issues through our lens. So I think that's a really important opportunity for us going forward. Also, at a more local level, we need to continue to show we're meeting the needs of people in Norfolk, and we'll be producing our market position statement this summer. I mean, the council obviously has a role to help shape services, and part of that is why the council's invested 27 million in independent living for older people and 18 million for younger adults to support the development of more housing to enable people to live independently with the support they need. We've got things like the home support review, which I know we had to delay during the pandemic, but this will move ahead this year. And in addition, we've launched a Connecting Community programme of work, which Newton Europe is supporting us with, and that will look at how we are working the best across our whole communities to support people who maybe have lower levels of need or maybe don't quite need social care yet, but how we are also connecting with all of the services that are available. I think there's also a big opportunity around how we're making the most of our the digital technologies and opportunities for everyone across social care as part of that. And I know that's something that we want to do as a council, to look at how we could get a broader offer for people as part of that, and how we can support people. I guess one of the models that has been discussed is the way that the council supports schools, for example, with digital support, and whether some of that could be looked at for social care as well. And it won't be wanted by all providers, but might be supportive for some. And obviously the wider work around supporting people post-hospital stays continues. I think the direction of travel there is it will be more streamlined, with a real focus on reablement and therapy-led beds for people when they immediately are discharged from hospital and ahead of their Care Act assessment. That's the model that is being looked at sort of right across the country as part of that. Also want to say thank you to Tim for your presentation and the work the team's doing with providers to continue to seek improvement of quality of care in Norfolk. It continues to be a corporate priority for our administration, with an aim of 85% of care in Norfolk to be good or outstanding by March 24. That obviously requires a broad strategy which is owned by everyone, and we need to get a better understanding of why overall levels of care quality is different in Norfolk compared to maybe the rest of the region and nationally. And obviously it's in all of our interests to do so. So we'll be working with partners, including Norfolk and Suffolk Care Support and Norca, Health Watch, our health partners in the voluntary sector, to agree a programme of work. And we want this to form part of the ICS structure, to look at all the elements behind this and how we can collectively support and address it. Obviously, NCC's got a role as part of this, you know, the work of Tim's team, supporting quality improvement, also how we contract and contract monitor, commission services, how we look at ethical commissioning and work across our social workers and with safeguarding teams. But it needs a wider involvement, and we want to sort of understand some of the improvement asked from providers. Also making sure that we've got a really strong voice from people who are using the services as well, and that we've got ways of bringing that in, and exploring the role of health in delivering quality care services. So I guess in summary, I think, you know, a time of much change, but hopefully building on what we've learnt over the previous years. And I think, you know, we've got a real set of opportunities ahead of us. I think it's a really exciting time for social care, and some of the things that we have been, I guess, some of the arguments we've been having and the cases for change, something that feels like it's now coming a bit to fruition. So it is our chance to really make sure our voice is heard, and really hope that many of you can sort of support us with getting some of that evidence out there and back to government, you know, as part of some of these measures. But thank you very much. Hopefully that gave a bit of a flavour, I guess, for some of our priorities.
Susanne, thank you very much, and thank you for stepping in at such short notice. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much. I think there's a few bits and pieces that have appeared in the chat box. Oh, excuse me just a second. Apologies about that. Yes, there's just a few things that have come in, some information that's available. We've also got some thanks, but there was something about the care hotel, which Steve put in there, but I think Tim has answered. So I think that should all be fine. Yeah, that's it, I think. So thank you very much, Susanne. Really appreciate you talking to us all today, and for, you know, for your priorities from Norfolk County Council. As you said, Susanne, some of the things that you've mentioned, we were going to go through a little slide pack of what we're doing, but I'm very conscious of the time. I don't want to take up any more time for people. People are leaving already. So I think just to sort of highlight some of the things that you mentioned, Susanne, Earn As You Learn scheme, a new initiative. This is where we're supporting students from colleges all around the county to be linked up with care providers. So if any care provider is interested in working with us, supporting a student into paid employment, and we're talking about short-term employment, you know, a few hours a week or a weekend or something like that, or an evening slot. It's not the panacea for recruitment, but it is certainly something that can support people, particularly during holiday periods. And we've already got, I think it's nearly 10 students placed with care providers in Norfolk, and we're hoping to increase that as we go forward. The care academies, we're looking at a model that we can continue with, but that's again a training course with linking up with providers, and we had a fairly successful one in North Norfolk as well recently, where we got 6 people into social care, and all the candidates have been extremely good, and we've had excellent feedback from providers about the programme, which is fantastic. We've also obviously working with the Prince's Trust and NCHC and our TNA partnership to look at recruiting nursing associates. And again, Susanne and I were on a call with NCHC Norfolk and Waveney partnership to look at how to recruit more effectively, but also to be able to utilise that role in a more effective way across a wider sector than just nursing homes. So we've met with the NMC and so on. And last but not least, I just wanted to mention what Pete and Megan are doing. Pete is working around the DSP toolkit, and we're going to have some more funding for that. But just to bear in mind, that's going to be a lot more opportunities over this year to have some support with that. The good news is, like Tim was saying about AS adult social care workforce development, we are one of the top in the country with the toolkit as well. So that's absolutely fantastic. And again, something in amongst all the dire news, we are actually leading the way, one of the top percentage of uptake. I mean, Pete, did you just want to come in and quickly add something to that before the end of the meeting?
Yeah, I've not got the figures on me because they were on the. I put them on the slide, but
Yeah.
I think we've got over 85, maybe 86% of providers in Norfolk that are registered. Sorry.
86.5.
86.5 providers registered on the toolkit, compared to, Megan, how many nationally?
68%.
68%. And in terms of being compliant on the toolkit, we have got there we go. That's easy, isn't it? And so we're at 63% compliance compared to a national figure of 43%. So we seem to be doing very well in Norfolk at this. So apologies for all of you that keep getting potentially nagging emails from me about it and reminders. Well, not really apologising, because it's important for us to do, but there is the support there. So, you know, if you're not sure whether you've done it, or you think you have and you're still getting emails from me, you know, please let me know, because even late yesterday and today, I'm dealing with somebody that's been doing it for ages, but due to a technicality, it's not been showing up as being compliant. So we're finding all sorts of things. So make use of the support.
Thank you very much, Pete, and I'm sure you'll agree they're fantastic figures as well. So great work that's going on there. And Megan, did you want to quickly pop in about your well-being? I don't want you to have to talk too much because of your voice, but just a bit of a plug.
Spluttering on the other end most of the session, but yeah, so I've just popped up some slides. We've got new wellbeing sessions coming up, and we'll be in touch about those. A lot of them about team building, leadership, healing from trauma, stuff that providers have told us that they're really keen to work on this year. And instead of the normal 3-month period, they'll run throughout the year. Just a reminder as well that we do have our wellbeing videos, which are bite-sized videos that you can do as part of a team or yourself on your break. They're all on our YouTube and on our website as well. And we also have a suite of dementia video training coming up, which you can keep an eye out for. Hopefully we'll be able to announce that shortly when it's ready.
Thank you very much, Megan. And I'm just responding to Sarah in the chat box there. So we'll link you up with Pete and help you with that as well, Sarah. So I think because the time is short now, I think we do need to close this. Megan, did you want to pop in the chat box the evaluation form?
Yes, I've popped that in already, but I'll pop it in again because I know there's been a bit of back and forth. So there we are. I've just popped that in again there.
That's absolutely brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Oh, thank you, Steve, as well. Thank you for your attendance as well. So if anyone can fill in the survey, that would be much appreciated. It's very helpful for us. I think, Megan, you tend to email as well afterwards as well, so that if people are in a bit of a rush, they can fill it in afterwards. So thank you on behalf of the team for attending. Oh, I do love the gifts. Thank you, Nicole. That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you for all our speakers. Emma, thank you, Emma. Always lovely to see you. Tim Weller, Susanne, Baldwin, and the lovely Becky as well. So thank you all, and have a fantastic rest of the day. Thank you.